I used to travel frequently for work, and by late October 2022, I was completely burned out. That night, my flight landed at O'Hare around 1:45 a.m. after a long delay. The airport was a ghost town. The terminal stores were locked behind metal grates. The cleaning crews were waxing the floors with those loud industrial machines. And all I wanted was to get to my apartment in the northwest suburbs, crawl into bed, and sleep until noon. I requested a ride on my app as I walked through the baggage claim area, heading toward the designated rideshare pickup zone. The app matched me with a driver named Luis, driving a dark gray Toyota Camry. He was supposedly 4 minutes away. I stood on the curb, pulling my jacket tight around my chest. Chicago wind in late October has a specific kind of bite to it, and I was exhausted to the point where my eyes felt heavy and gritty. I watched the little car icon on my phone screen navigate the terminal loop. A few minutes later, a dark gray Camry pulled up to the curb about 20 feet away from me. I checked the license plate against the app, and it matched perfectly. I grabbed the handle of the back door, threw my duffel bag across the seat, and slid in. "Luis?" I asked, settling into the leather seat and pulling my seatbelt across my chest. He didn't turn around at all, just a low grunt, almost like he didn't want me to see his face. He put the car in drive and merged back into the airport exit lanes. The interior of the car smelled overwhelmingly of black ice air freshener, the kind that gives you a headache if you sit in it too long. His phone was mounted on the dashboard, glowing brightly in the dark cabin, showing the blue GPS route heading toward my apartment in Arlington Heights. Everything seemed completely standard. I leaned my head against the cold glass of the window, closed my eyes, and prepared for the 30-minute drive home. For the first 10 minutes, I drifted in and out of a light, exhausted sleep. The hum of the tires on the Interstate 90 pavement was hypnotic. When I opened my eyes, something was immediately wrong. The highway lights were gone. I sat up a little straighter, blinking to clear my vision. We weren't on the interstate anymore. We were on a 2-lane surface road flanked by dense, skeletal trees and industrial parks. It was incredibly dark. I checked my watch. It was 2:15 a.m. We should have been exiting near Arlington Heights by now. But this area looked like the far western edges of the county, somewhere past Elgin, where the suburbs start bleeding into rural farmland and forest preserves. I looked at the driver's mounted phone.
Did you hear that?
The GPS app wasn't running anymore. Instead, the screen was displaying a standard text message thread, though from my angle in the back seat, I couldn't read the words. "Hey man," I said, trying to keep my voice casual and polite. "Did the highway get shut down for construction or something?" The driver didn't answer immediately. He kept his eyes locked on the road ahead. His posture was rigid, both hands gripping the steering wheel tightly at 10 and 2. After a few seconds of heavy silence, he replied without turning his head. "Yeah, accident. Lots of traffic. Taking a detour." His voice was muffled, gravelly, and completely devoid of any customer service friendliness. It didn't make much sense to me. It was past 2 in the morning. Even a major accident wouldn't require a detour this deep into the back roads. But I was tired, and I really didn't want to start an argument with the guy driving the car. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my own phone to check the route on my Uber app, just to see what kind of ETA we were looking at. When I unlocked my screen and opened the app, my stomach dropped instantly. The screen didn't show my trip in progress. It showed the standard home screen, asking me where I wanted to go. I tapped my trip history, thinking it was just a glitch. The top entry read, "Trip canceled by driver, 1:56 a.m. This ride wasn't active anymore. Uber wasn't tracking us anymore? No one knew where I was. I was sitting in the back of a moving vehicle with a complete stranger in the middle of nowhere, and there was no digital record of me currently being in this car. A cold spike of adrenaline shot through my chest, instantly wiping away any lingering exhaustion. I looked up at the back of the driver's head. The silence in the car suddenly felt suffocating. "Hey, Luis?" I said, my voice noticeably tighter this time. "My app is saying the ride was canceled. What's going on?" He didn't answer. He just reached up with his right hand and tapped the screen of his mounted phone. A second later, I heard the distinct mechanical click of the car doors locking. The sound was incredibly loud in the quiet cabin. "Hey!" I raised my voice, shifting closer to the door. "Unlock the doors. Pull over right now. I want to get out." He ignored me entirely. Instead, he asked a question that made the blood freeze in my veins. "Do you live alone?" He asked softly. Not curious, not casual, like he already needed the answer. "What? No, I don't live alone," I lied quickly, my heart hammering against my ribs. "My roommate is a cop. He's literally waiting up for me right now. Pull the car over." The driver let out a soft, dismissive breath that sounded like a laugh. But he didn't slow down. We were driving down a pitch-black stretch of road with no streetlights, no houses, just thick woods on either side. I grabbed the door handle and pulled it. Nothing happened. I pulled it again, harder, but it was useless. The child safety locks were engaged. I was trapped in the back seat. Panic fully took over. I slapped the window, looking for any sign of civilization, but there was nothing. I turned on my phone flashlight and shined it forward toward the dashboard. In the bright glare, I saw something that confused me for a split second before the true horror of it set in. The driver raised his hand to block the light, and I saw that the skin on the back of his neck and hands was pale white. The profile picture for Luis on the app had been a Hispanic man with dark hair and a thick beard. The man driving wasn't Luis. Not even close. Different face. Different skin. I had gotten into the wrong car, but the plate matched. That's when it hit me. I wasn't getting home. I looked at his mounted phone again. The text thread was still open. I couldn't read the small text, but I saw a new message pop up. It was a dropped pin on a map, followed by a short text message. I squinted, leaning forward as far as my seatbelt would allow. The message read, "Gate is open. Bring him around back." "Stop the car," I yelled, unbuckling my seatbelt. I lunged forward and grabbed his shoulder. The car swerved violently. For a split second, I thought we were going to crash. He cursed loudly as the tires drifted onto the gravel shoulder before he violently corrected the steering wheel back onto the asphalt. "Sit the hell back," he shouted, throwing his right elbow back and catching me hard in the ribs. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and I fell back against the seat, gasping for air. The car accelerated. We were easily going 60 miles an hour down a dark, winding country road. I realized that physically fighting him while the car was moving at this speed was a death sentence. I frantically searched my pockets and my duffel bag in the dark.
Get back!
I needed a weapon, something to break the window. I found my heavy metal Yeti water bottle. I gripped it tightly by the neck, positioning myself against the opposite door, waiting. The car sped along for another agonizing 3 or 4 minutes before the brake lights finally illuminated the trees behind us. He was slowing down. Up ahead, I saw a break in the tree line and an old rusted chain-link fence. Beyond the fence was a large, abandoned-looking warehouse or factory building. sitting completely dark against the night sky. There was a narrow, unpaved access road leading through the open gate. The driver hit his turn signal, a bizarrely polite gesture given the circumstances, and turned the wheel, slowing the car down to about 10 miles an hour to navigate the deep, muddy ruts in the path. This was it, my only chance. As the car bumped violently over a large pothole, throwing the driver slightly off balance, I swung the heavy metal base of the water bottle directly into the center of the rear passenger window. The glass didn't shatter on the first hit. It cracked with a loud spiderweb pattern. The driver yelled something and slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a halt in the mud. Before he could turn around, I swung the bottle a second time, putting every ounce of my strength behind it. The window shattered outward, raining glass into the dark grass. I didn't hesitate. I threw myself head first through the broken window, tearing my jacket and scraping my side on the jagged glass remaining in the frame. I hit the muddy ground hard, rolling onto my shoulder and scrambling to my feet in one fluid motion. I heard the driver's door open. "Hey!" he yelled, his boots crunching on the gravel. I didn't look back. I sprinted toward the tree line, plunging into the dense, thorny brush. It was pitch black in the woods. I tripped over roots, tearing my hands and face on branches, running blindly on pure, raw adrenaline. I heard the sound of heavy footsteps crashing into the brush behind me, but they weren't moving as fast. He was searching. He didn't know exactly which way I went. I pushed deeper into the forest, running until my lungs burned and I physically couldn't take another step. I dropped to my knees behind a massive fallen oak tree, burying my face in the damp dirt to muffle the sound of my own ragged breathing.
Help!
I lay there in the dark for what felt like hours.
Over here!
I could hear him moving through the woods, sweeping a flashlight beam through the trees about 50 yards away. The beam passed over my hiding spot twice, but I stayed perfectly still, pressed against the rotting bark. After about 20 minutes, the footsteps stopped. I heard a car door slam in the distance, followed by an engine revving and tires spinning in the mud. The sound of the engine faded into the night. I didn't move. I stayed hidden behind that log until the sky began to turn a dull, gray blue. Once I was absolutely sure it was morning and the woods were clear, I pulled out my phone. Miraculously, it hadn't shattered in the fall. I had 1 bar of service. I dialed 911. The police found me walking along the shoulder of the main road about a mile from the warehouse. I was covered in mud, bleeding and shaking uncontrollably. They drove me down the access road to the abandoned property. The Camry was gone. There was no one inside the warehouse, though the officers noted fresh tire tracks and a bunch of cigarette butts near the back loading dock, confirming that someone had been waiting there recently. When the police contacted Uber and ran the license plate through their system, the truth turned out to be far more disturbing than a simple kidnapping. The plate number matched the app, but the car itself was stolen. The real Luis had been carjacked at a gas station near the airport earlier that night. The thieves had taken his car, his wallet, and his phone. They kept his Uber app active. They were intentionally picking up solo travelers arriving late at night, canceling the rides right after picking them up to erase the GPS tracking and taking them to a secondary location. The police never caught the guy driving, and they never figured out who was waiting at the warehouse. The scariest part wasn't what almost happened to me. It's that they had a system, a plan, a place. And I don't think I was the first person who got into that car. I just might have been the only one who got out alive.